why do we need leadership? Here you are, a director of the Global Institute of Sustainability, and that puts you in a position of leadership. So in a sense, we have leaders, right? Why do we need more leaders for sustainability, especially among scientists and engineers?
I think there's a number of reasons why we have to be thinking about leadership more broadly. And it begins by recognizing that if you take, for me at least, and I'm going to talk in the context of sustainability because that's what I know and that's what I do. If you think about the sustainability project, where sustainability is defined in the way that we talk about it as universal, intergenerational human well-being, you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about that before you realize that you're kind of talking about the totality of the human experience, past, present, and future. So scope is big here when we're talking about sustainability. Far too big for any one individual to even pretend that they can get their mind around it, and certainly far too big for any one individual to be truly leading in any kind of an engaged sense. At the same time, the nature of sustainability problems are that they tend to be systemic. They tend to be the kinds of things you'd expect from a complex system where nonlinearities are important. That means you have to have, in my mind at least, a certain transdisciplinary capability and a capacity for different voices to come in and out of the conversation, but nonetheless have a coherence to them. So this is now suggesting that as you start to get into the idea of sustainability, that you've got to have people who can work together, who can think collectively in systems or about systems, and bring transdisciplinary skills. And recognizing that there's so much uncertainty in these deeply nonlinear fed-back systems that it's going to be hard to know for sure whether you're even going in the right direction. This is pointing then towards aggregates of people who are working together in subsets, however you can manage to create subsets, where there does need to be a sense of leadership in that group. It may not be leadership in the traditional, I'm your leader and you are my followers and you're going to be coming along, but maybe more in the sense of, say, an expedition leader like the Lewis and Clark expedition, or probably even a better analogy are space shuttle missions, where, yes, there is a mission leader, a mission commander, but at any one time, any member of the crew could be demonstrating substantial leadership of what's happening. In other words, as their voices and their skills come in and are needed, they come in and out. Now, that kind of leadership, if you kind of think about it, is not the kind of thing that you find in many places. I mean, it is kind of space shuttle expedition kind of stuff, or occasionally businesses will do something like this with innovation teams or skunk work type teams, but by and large, it's not that common. If ASU has as its goal to address then the sustainability project, universal intergenerational human well-being, and if we have as our goal to do it globally and at scale, then we need a different kind of leader. And we need as many of them as we can find and build. And I want to put the emphasis on build because it's my belief that leaders are more built than they are born. So that's broadly the reason that I'm doing it. And yes, we do have good leadership. I think Michael's a remarkable leader. We've got great leadership at the executive vice president level. We've got some good leaders in the institutes and the deans. But we need more.
When I first got to ASU, you were the director of Lightworks.
Right.
And I was curious about that. I couldn't really figure it out. I think a lot of people are like me. We're familiar with a certain organizational structure. We inherited it from the Industrial Revolution. The military is often held up as the epitome of this example of a top-down, hierarchical, sort of tree root metaphor of an org chart. We think of this as leadership. So I asked you, what is Lightworks? Is it a center? Is it an institute? Is it what is it that I could recognize? And you said, Tom, think of it as a movement.
That's right.
Tell me about that transition in leadership, because that's kind of what you're describing.
It is. The way that Lightworks actually operates is, to begin, it's a community of like-minded individuals. We all begin by believing that energy is important in the way that the world plays out, and again, against this context of well-being. I would argue that you cannot live well. People cannot live well without access to modern forms of energy. They just can't. And therefore, there's a certain social justice aspect to energy. There's a certain aspect of impact on the environment, impact on climate. And this group subscribed to that point of view. And that is the underlying sort of values that motivate it. But then beyond that, it was a group of people that genuinely believed that there was more opportunity if we were acting in concert than if we were acting alone. And the reason I use the word concert is important, because in working with Lightworks, I'm not asking people, in spite of the fact that I'm the director, I'm not asking people, please follow me. Or I'm certainly not telling them, you will follow me. What I'm saying is that if we use our skills, if we use our capacity in concert, there are important things that we can do. So let's talk about what does it mean to act in concert. And this kind of reinforces what I said a moment ago about leadership, because that's really what we're talking about, is people in the organization structure is emerging because of a set of ideas and principles that they share as a cohesive unit. Nobody is creating them. There is no clear delegation of authority into this group of people, certainly not below my level. And nonetheless, they are cohesive. And they're cohesive because of the set of values and the commitment to using their skills and their resources in concert. And that's the way Lightworks works. And it actually, in a university environment, which I think would be hard actually in most other environments, but in a university environment where faculty members may not have been exposed in their graduate and postgraduate education to thinking in terms of bigger teams all that often, they do get the idea of collaboration, and they do get the idea of adding what they have to offer to what other people are doing and working together.
But there's a mindset in the university about leadership as if leadership was a race. But our whole lives we've been in this academic, I don't want to call it a treadmill because we are getting somewhere, but we've been on an academic path.
Right.
And the rewards sometimes accrue to the people who are running that path the fastest. So we think of those people as being in the lead. Who's got the most publications or the most citations or the most research dollars? When the Leadership Academy first started, Michael Crow gave a speech saying, that's not the kind of leadership that we're talking about here in this academy. Could you remind us of what he was talking about? What kind of leadership is it?
Yeah, well, he was emphasizing that his vision for the New American University is that we solve problems. That we are aware of our place, that we're aware of the needs of society, and we are reacting to them in the first instance. And so our work is not done, and not even necessarily justified, by a publication. It's when we go beyond that and begin to actually apply. And that is, in Michael's mind, and I would agree with him, a step beyond the normal thinking of the kind of, and I agree with you, it's not a treadmill, but for lack of a better metaphor, that's not what we're talking about here. Now, I would say at the same time, what I'm talking about with these aggregates of people and leadership as an emergent property and the willingness to take on accountability as an emergent property is not inconsistent with faculty members progressing their own career. Because if they work in larger groups and they get bigger grants, it may actually be on a cost-benefit basis. It may actually not be a bad thing. If we're out working with different groups of people than we would traditionally do, in my case of energy, NSF, DOE, that crowd, if you're now talking to the World Bank, or if you're now talking to a company, or if you're even talking to USAID, which would be non-traditional for us, these are opportunities that a typical faculty member probably isn't used to.
And they can't take on by themselves.
And they can't. And I think this is a critical point, Tom, because part of what we're offering, and part of what I'm offering in Lightworks, and we're doing this in other areas besides just energy, is to say to a faculty member, well, if you'll join with us, and if you will use your capabilities in concert with us, we're going to do background work, and we're going to do support work that you have no time to do. And it would be a huge risk to you to take it on, because if you failed, you will have invested an awful lot in it, and the opportunity cost associated with that is a lot of risk, especially for young faculty.